My 26 female family says they'll cut me off if I stay with my boyfriend, 37 male, who once held me hostage during a drug-induced psychosis, but I still believe he can change. Am I blind or am I choosing love over fear? I met my boyfriend in December 2024, and from the minute I met him, it felt like I had known him forever. It's hard to describe, but he calmed my soul. Everything about it felt aligned. Our values, our hopes for the future, the way we carried ourselves. It was like finding someone who spoke the same emotional and spiritual language I'd been waiting to hear my whole life. Those first 2 months were incredible. My friends even told me they hadn't seen me that happy in years. I connected with him emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, on every level. We were both committed to growth, both as individuals and as a couple, and for a while it felt like everything was clicking. But then reality started to seep in, and things became complicated in ways I hadn't imagined. He grew up in a completely different world from me. His childhood and teenage years were filled with violence, crime, and trauma. At 17, he was caught up in gang-related crime and ended up serving 12 years in prison under joint enterprise law. He's now on life license, which means his freedom is conditional, always under scrutiny. After prison, he tried to build a life, had a long-term partner, and fathered 2 children. I thought I could accept all of this. It was part of his past, not his present. But what I didn't see coming was how much of his past still had a grip on him. We started taking cocaine together on nights out. For me, it was occasional, something I'd done with friends here and there. For him, it turned into something darker, something that felt like an unhealed wound opening up every time. His use spiraled quickly. What started as nights out became binges that stretched on for days. Each time, it grew worse. Paranoia would take hold, and soon I was the target. He'd accuse me of cheating over and over. And here's where my own unhealed wounds came into play. I've always had this desperate need to prove my worth, to prove my love. Instead of stepping back, instead of saying enough, I doubled down on proving my loyalty. I got a new phone number so only he, my family, and closest friends could reach me. I took a lie detector test to prove I hadn't cheated. I tattooed his name on my body, thinking it would show him I was committed, that I was only his. He wanted it too, so I convinced myself it was romantic, when in reality it was just another way I was trying to hold everything together. And then there was the money. I took out a £10,000 loan to help him start his business. At least, that's what it was supposed to be for. But most of it went to drugs. He wasn't working a steady job because of the business, and he moved into my home. I ended up paying for most of our life together, financially carrying us, while also carrying the emotional weight of his addiction and paranoia. It became a roller coaster neither of us could get off. The highs were intoxicating. When he was sober and loving, I saw the man I fell for, the one who calmed my soul. But the lows were devastating. His binges, his accusations, my desperate attempts to prove my innocence and love, the financial strain, it was chaos. And yet, neither of us seemed to know how to let go. It's like we were both trapped in this storm we didn't want but couldn't stop fueling. The accusations didn't always stay confined to the nights when he was using. Sometimes they crept into the sober hours, when I'd hope for peace, and instead I'd be blindsided. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself it was just the drugs lingering in his system, the paranoia so strong it had taken root in his mind even when the high was fading. I convinced myself he couldn't help it, that it was the cocaine talking, not him. But over time, it became harder to separate the man I loved from the man addiction was shaping him into. When he was sober and clear, he was the person who calmed my soul, who made me feel safe, protected, cared for, and cherished. That's what kept me holding on. I could see how much this was hurting him too, and in those moments of clarity, he hated himself for what he was doing to us. That glimpse of remorse, of the man I believed in, gave me hope, even when everything else was falling apart. But the drugs took more and more. His paranoia evolved into full-blown drug-induced psychosis. He would see and hear things that weren't there. Sometimes he was convinced there were other people in the house with us, that I was sneaking around and seeing someone else even while he was right there. I would try to reason with him, show him that no one was there, that it was just us, but logic never reached him in those moments. He was trapped in a nightmare his own mind was spinning, and I was trapped in it with him. Then came the swinging. He introduced me to it, but later confessed he only did it because he thought if I was allowed to sleep with other people, then I'd have no reason to cheat. For him, it was a twisted form of control, a way of convincing himself he could keep me. For me, it was soul-crushing. I tried it because I was so desperate to keep him, to prove I was committed. But it went against everything I valued. I believe in true connection, intimacy rooted in love and trust, not transactional encounters with strangers. Every time we tried it, I felt sick, hollow, and ashamed. I hated myself for going along with it. And eventually, he admitted he regretted ever introducing it, but by then the damage to my sense of self was already done. It all came to a head one night, a night I will never forget, no matter how much I wish I could erase it. He had been on a binge for 4 days straight with no sleep. The paranoia and psychosis were at their peak, and I could see the terror in his eyes. He was shaking, pacing, muttering, completely lost in a world only he could see. He told me he was convinced I was working with the police, that I was setting him up to go back to prison. He said he could see police vans outside and hear sirens closing in, even though the street outside was silent. I tried to calm him down, begged him to rest, to close his eyes, to let the storm pass. But my words couldn't reach him. Instead, he grew more agitated. He told me he wasn't going back to prison. He said he'd rather die, but before that, he would kill me. He grabbed a knife. His hands were trembling. He locked the doors and told me I wasn't leaving. He said if the police came through the door, he'd kill me first, and then himself. I could feel my heart pounding in my throat. I tried to keep my face calm, my voice steady, even though inside I was shattering. I told him I wasn't against him, that I was on his side, that there were no police, that it was just us. I played along with his delusion because I knew any sign of panic or resistance could set him off. My parents knew something was wrong. They had been aware of the spirals, the paranoia, the drugs. They were worried sick. That night, they couldn't reach me properly, but somehow they got the message. I wasn't safe. They were in contact with the police, desperate to get me out without triggering him. Hours crawled by in that locked house, every second stretched thin with fear. I didn't know if he would snap, if this was how it would end for me. Eventually, exhaustion took him. After 4 sleepless days, his body finally gave in. He passed out, the knife falling out of his hand. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my dog, bolted out of the house in the early hours of the morning, and ran. I don't even remember feeling my legs, just pure adrenaline carrying me as I sprinted to safety. My parents were waiting with the police. The relief of seeing them, of being outside, alive, is something I will never forget. Through tears, I told them everything. The drugs, the paranoia, the psychosis, the threats. Every detail I had tried to hide before out of shame or loyalty came pouring out because the truth was undeniable. I had been terrified for my life. That same morning, the police went into my home. They found him still passed out, exactly where I had left him, oblivious to the terror he had unleashed. He was arrested on the spot. When everything came to a head, and I finally got out of the house that night, my parents thought they had lost me. They told me later that the fear of getting that call from the police, the one every parent dreads, had been sitting in their chests like a stone. My friends were also terrified. They all knew what had been going on, the spirals, the paranoia, the accusations. They tried to support me through it, but I think they always sensed it was a matter of time before it became life or death. When it finally did, they almost had to grieve me in real time. Since my boyfriend was taken inside, I've had time to breathe. Time to think, to reflect, to actually sit with what happened instead of living in the chaos of it. I started therapy. I began working on myself, on my patterns, on why I tolerated so much for so long. And through all of that reflection, I keep coming back to the same truth. I don't believe my boyfriend is a bad person. I want to be clear, I don't excuse what happened. I know it was terrifying, I know I could have died. But I also know that if he hadn't been on drugs, it never would have happened. The addiction is the monster here. When he's sober, I trust him. When he's sober, I feel safe. That's the man I fell in love with. The kind, protective, deeply connected man who made me feel like I'd found home. I couldn't live with myself getting him sentenced on top of everything. So, I withdrew my statements. All the charges were eventually dropped. He's still inside, but that's because he's on recall. He won't be released until the middle of next year. We've spoken since then. He apologized deeply. He admitted he has addiction problems. For the first time, he didn't deflect, didn't make excuses, didn't try to turn it back on me. He said he sees clearly now what drugs have done to him and to us. He told me he wants to be the man I deserve, that he wants to build a future together, that he knows it will take work. And he is working. He's not just sitting around in there. He's doing drug misuse courses, taking steps to understand himself. He told me he's confronting the wounds from his childhood, abandonment, rejection, pain he's been carrying for decades. He knows the work can't stop when he's released. He talks about rehab, about ongoing support, about building healthier patterns. Despite everything, I still see him for who he is when he's sober. Kind, loving, protective, and deeply connected to me. I don't hold what happened against him. I can't. I believe in his ability to change. I feel like our story isn't finished yet. But here's the problem. My family and friends don't see him the way I do. To them, he's a danger. They believe he has controlled and manipulated me, and that he will keep doing it. They don't trust him, and they don't trust me to see the truth. And honestly, I can understand why they feel that way. I've been told by police officers and domestic violence workers that I'm lucky to be alive. They've told me straight out, if I go back to him, I could end up dead. It's a brutal thing to hear, but I know they're basing it on what they've seen in other cases, on patterns that rarely end well. My family is terrified. They thought they already lost me once. They don't want to sit around waiting for the next time. My mom recently told me something that broke me to my core. If I choose to stay with him, they can't be part of my life anymore. She said they can't stand by and watch me go through this again, watch me risk my life for a man who nearly destroyed it. Hearing that shattered me. My family means everything to me. They would move mountains for me. They've always been my rock. For them to tell me they would have to walk away, I know how much it must hurt them to say that. They would never abandon me unless they were absolutely terrified. It's torn me in two. On one hand, I look at my family and friends and I see the pain in their faces, the fear in their voices, and I know they're speaking from love. I know one day they won't be here anymore, and I'll look back and wish I had this time with them, wish I had chosen them when they begged me to. I feel like I'm standing in the middle of two worlds, and whichever way I turn, I lose something I can never get back. If I stay true to myself, if I trust my heart and intuition, I risk losing everyone else around me. If I choose what everyone else insists is right for me, I feel like I'm abandoning myself. It's as though no matter what choice I make, I'm betraying someone. Either my family, who love me fiercely, or myself, who has finally started to listen to my own voice. What hurts even more is the way people see me in all of this. They look at me like I'm stupid, manipulated, naive, blinded by love. They think I don't see the danger, that I don't understand what I've been through, that my judgment is already compromised. And maybe they're right, but maybe they're not. I've always been someone who fights for what I love, someone who doesn't give up easily. I know one of my flaws is not knowing when to walk away, but I also know my life has been shaped so much by other people's expectations, what they think I should do, who they think I should be. I've followed those voices for so long, and I can't help but wonder, what if this time I need to follow mine, even if it terrifies everyone else? It feels like I'm being asked to choose between the man I love and the family who raised me. And it feels impossible. I keep replaying it in my mind. If I choose him, I lose them. If I choose them, I lose him. Either way, a part of me breaks. There's a voice in my head that echoes what so many people have said. Walk away. Don't look back. Save yourself. That part of me wonders if they're right, if I'm clinging to something that is doomed, if I'm risking everything for a dream that will never materialize. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, that voice gets loud. But then there's another part of me, stubborn, hopeful, unshaken, that whispers back, trust yourself. You know your heart better than anyone. You've lived this, not them. You've seen him sober. You've seen the man underneath the addiction, the trauma, the chaos. And that part of me believes in growth, in healing, in change. That part of me believes that walking away now would mean I'd never get to find out if the love I felt was real enough to survive, if the life we dreamed of was possible. Lately, I've been leaning into spirituality more, trying to make sense of all this through something bigger than myself. I think about divine masculine and feminine energy, karmic cycles, the idea that the universe brings us lessons we have to face. It feels like I'm being tested, to stand in my truth, to break the cycles of fear and conformity, to stop walking through life, making choices just to ease other people's worries. Maybe I'm meant to choose love and faith over fear this time. Maybe this is about learning to stand firm in my own intuition, even if the world is against me. And yet, I'm scared. I'm grieving. I'm trying to hold both truths at once, that following my heart hurts the people I love, and abandoning my heart hurts me. I don't want to lose my family. I can't imagine a life without them. I know time heals, and just because they've said they can't stand by me now doesn't mean it will be forever. But at the same time, I don't want to lose my boyfriend either, not if he truly is becoming the man I believe he can be. This is the hardest thing I've ever faced. I lie awake at night trying to figure out if I'm blinded by love or if, maybe, I'm one of the few who can see the real him. Am I deluding myself, or am I choosing to believe in something rare and worth fighting for? I keep asking myself, how do you know when to trust your judgment? How do you separate intuition from denial, faith from foolishness? I know what everyone else thinks, but I don't know what's true for me anymore. All I know is that I feel torn in half, and no matter which path I choose, I will lose something I love. Has anyone else ever been in a situation like this, having to choose between your family and your partner? How did you know what the right decision was? How did you find the strength to trust yourself when everyone else told you that you were wrong?